In a small town in Virginia, Harold and Martha Bennington lived together for 60 years. They were an example of love, endurance, and trust. Everyone thought they were the perfect couple. They went through hardships, illness, and poverty, but always together. Harold believed he knew everything about Martha. But on the day she lay in her hospital bed, knowing that the end was near, she asked to be alone, and told him what she had never had the courage to say. Before that, write where you're watching from and subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's exclusive story. In a small town in Virginia, where time seemed to slow down in the gentle embrace of rolling hills and quiet streets, Harold and Martha Bennington had spent 60 years intertwined in a love many deemed perfect. Today, in the sterile yet softly lit room of a local hospital, that enduring love was being tested in the most profound of ways. The room was painted in a pale, soothing blue, and the steady hum of machines filled the background with a rhythmic reminder of life's fragility. Outside the window, early morning light filtered through a scattering of clouds, its warm glow contrasting sharply with the cold white of the hospital linens. Martha lay on a neatly made bed in the corner of the room, surrounded by the gentle clatter of medical equipment and the quiet whispers of nurses tending to her care. Her once bright eyes, which had seen decades of laughter, tears, and endless sunsets with Harold, were now clouded with fatigue and a deep, silent melancholy. Harold sat right beside her, his weathered hand enveloping hers in a tender grip. For decades, he had navigated every storm with her by his side, his steadfast presence a constant in every joy and sorrow. Now, as her breathing had grown shallow and each exhalation seemed laden with unspoken words, Harold's eyes searched Martha's face for clues of what she might be thinking. The room was quiet except for the occasional beep of the monitors and the soft murmur of a nurse discussing her vitals. Harold's heart pounded in his chest as he gently squeezed her hand, silently willing her to find the strength to speak. Martha's gaze, fixed on the window where the sun's rays danced lightly on the glass, held a world of secrets yet to be whispered. After a long, breathless pause filled only by their shared memories, Martha's frail lips parted, and in a voice so soft it barely rose above the hum of the machinery, she said, "Harold, before I go." Her words caught in the air like fragile glass, trembling with old regrets and buried truths. Harold leaned in, his eyes filled with a mix of confusion and concern. He had always believed that in 60 years of shared life, he knew everything about his beloved Martha. Every wrinkle on her gentle face, every quiet sigh, every smile and tear had built a tapestry of intimacy between them. Yet now the very air around her seemed heavy with the words unsaid, as if the decades had conspired to hide a secret too painful to voice until this final moment. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the steady rhythm of her heart monitor. "Martha?" he urged softly, his voice a tender whisper. "What is it you want to tell me?" For a long, interminable moment, Martha's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she gathered the strength to continue. Before I leave this world, there's something I must tell you," she murmured, her fingers trembling, not from weakness alone but from the burden of a secret carried silently through their long years together. In that vulnerable instant, Harold's mind raced with questions. Memories of laughter and quiet moments blended with an undercurrent of anxiety. Had he really known his wife completely, or had there been a hidden chapter in their shared story that he had never read? The soft din of the ventilator and the distant footsteps of a nurse outside reminded them that time was slipping away. Harold pressed his lips together in quiet determination. Every fiber of his being longed to embrace Martha's spirit, to reassure her that their lifetime together had meant more than any secret could diminish. "My dear, you know you can tell me anything," he said, trying to infuse his tone with the gentle calm that had defined his steady love for her. His eyes, rich with unshed tears and endless memories, searched hers for the reassurance that would allow him to understand. For years, the couple had weathered storms, illnesses, financial hardships, and unspoken adversities, undaunted by the odds because their love had been their guiding beacon. But as Martha's hand shuddered slightly in his, a deep, quivering silence engulfed the room. The corners of her eyes, normally so warm with unspoken understanding, now betrayed an inner conflict that had festered quietly for decades. "I've lived with it all my life, Harold," she whispered, her voice barely audible, trembling like a fragile autumn leaf in the wind. "I have kept something hidden, something I was too afraid to share." The words, though few, carried a portent of revelation that shattered the comfortable familiarity between them. Harold's heart clenched, and for a moment, disbelief clouded his features. He had always thought that every secret, every nuance of her heart, had been laid out plainly in the life they had built together. Yet now his mind was awash with uncertainty. Was this confession about something mundane, a small indiscretion from long ago? Or did it hold more weight, challenging the very foundation of the love and trust they had so carefully nurtured over 60 years? The quiet beeping of the monitor seemed to mark each second that ticked by as he waited, breath bated, for her to continue. In that poignant silence, the world outside the window continued its gentle glow, unknowing of the profound personal revelation unfolding within these four walls. Harold's emotions became a maelstrom of confusion, fear, and an almost desperate longing for the simple truth he believed he had known so well. "Martha," he finally murmured, his own voice thick with unshed tears. "Please, tell me what it is." The impending gravity of her secret hung only momentarily before Martha, summoning every ounce of courage she possessed in these final hours, spoke the words that would forever alter the fabric of their shared life. In a quiet, sorrowful tone, she began, "I must tell you the truth, a truth I have hidden, even from you all these years." Her voice was fragile, yet within it lay the strength of a lifetime of burdens, an honesty so pure that it seemed both liberating and devastating. In that tender moment, as Harold clutched her hand with an intensity born of a lifetime of love and unspoken secrets, the hospital room transformed into a sanctum of confessions. Outside, the world continued its indifferent cycle, but inside, time slowed, allowing these final, poignant moments to stretch into eternity. And as Martha's trembling words prepared to unveil the secret that had shadowed her life, Harold's eyes filled with both dread and a deep, unyielding love that promised to embrace even the most shattering revelations. In that heavy, expectant silence following her trembling words, Martha closed her eyes and drew a slow, shuddering breath. As the soft beeping of the monitor punctuated the quiet, she began to tell Harold of a past long hidden, a past that reached back to her uncharted youth, a time when the woman he had come to know was still in the process of becoming. "I haven't told you about the days before we met, Harold," she began, her voice quiet but resonant, each word carefully measured, "when I was young and still searching for my own path." Her eyes, once the clear, tender blue that Harold had loved for decades, flickered with the memories of a life lived far from the comfortable rhythms of their shared existence. "I grew up in a small town much like this one, but the world then was so different, full of promise, rebellion, and more dreams than I apparently possessed the courage to chase." She spoke of a time when the days were long and impassioned, when each sunrise promised adventure and each twilight held secrets yet undiscovered. "Back then, I believed in taking risks," Martha confessed, her voice softening as she recalled the color and noise of her former life. She described stolen moments under wide, starlit skies and the rush of making choices that sometimes went against the expectations of those around her. "I was not the delicate, patient soul, you know. I was more impulsive, brimming with an urgency to experience everything, to feel every passion and sorrow with a wild intensity." Harold, still holding her hand, listened intently. The familiar glimmer of their shared love was tinged now with a hint of apprehension. Had he known the full story from the start? His mind conjured images of a younger Martha, perhaps with fiery eyes and an untamable heart, far removed from the gentle, soft-spoken partner he'd adored for so many years. Martha continued, "I embarked on a journey of self-discovery and defiance. I left home, seeking a world beyond the confines of what I was told was proper. In those days, I was determined to write my own destiny, even if it meant making choices that might later weigh upon my soul. I dressed boldly, laughed fiercely, and loved without restraint. I even forged friendships that were as deep as they were complicated. But with every step I took towards freedom, I also stumbled over the costs of my choices. Her words wove a tapestry of emotions, excitement intermingled with regret, hope shadowed by inevitable heartache. There were nights filled with promises of eternal love and mornings, when reality shattered those illusions into painful shards. I remember the taste of bittersweet freedom in the heat of summer, but also the lonely chill of regret when all the noise around me quieted. She paused, her eyes glistening with memories of a life lived on the edge of possibility and consequence. I learned that sometimes, in the pursuit of passion, we make choices that we later bury deep inside ourselves. I did things I never spoke of, secrets that I locked away because I was terrified of what they might mean, or whom they might hurt. Harold squeezed her hand in gentle affirmation, his heart both heavy and tenderly curious as he absorbed each word. He had always thought that his marriage with Martha was built on mutual truth and unwavering trust. In the shared years of their life together, every challenge had been met side by side. Yet now, as Martha unveiled the fragments of her untold past, he felt a pang of sorrow for the parts of her he had never known, a youthful self filled with both daring and undeniable vulnerability. "You see, Harold," she whispered, "long before I met you, my spirit was wild and unrestrained. I experienced a love so fierce that it burned like wildfire, but I also faced heartache that cut deeper than any wound. I lived through moments of ecstasy and despair, of secret passions and quiet devastations. There were times when I longed for more than what was possible, and in my longing, I sometimes strayed from the path that would have kept my heart unburdened. I carried those memories with me, hidden behind a facade of composure, and I learned to bury the parts of me that I feared might tarnish the love I wished to share with someone as kind and steady as you." Martha's eyes searched Harold's, looking for understanding, or perhaps forgiveness. "I never spoke of these things because I was ashamed," she admitted softly. "Not ashamed of loving fiercely or of making mistakes, but ashamed that part of me that was so restless, so unconstrained, had to remain hidden. I feared that by revealing those chapters of my life, I might shatter the illusion of perfection that we all believed about our love. I was terrified that you might see me as flawed, not worthy of the beautiful, enduring life we built together." As her words spilled forth like a long-held secret finally released into the light, Harold's emotions warred within him. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears, not of anger, but of a deep, aching compassion for the woman he thought he knew entirely. He remembered the woman who had stood by his side through every trial, the one whose quiet courage had carried them through hard times. Now he saw traces of a different Martha, one whose past was rich with both joy and sorrow, a mosaic of experiences that had molded her into the steadfast partner he cherished. In that long, cathartic confession, the past and present converged. Martha's voice, though fragile, carried the weight of truth so raw that the very air between them seemed to vibrate with its power. She revealed the vibrant hues of a youth filled with both ecstasy and regret, a time when she had tasted life in all its unfiltered intensity. Moments that ultimately led her to a turning point, where she chose the quieter, enduring love she found with Harold. Yet now, even as those memories fluttered to the surface, she was haunted by the parts left unsaid, the secret dreams and heartbreaks that she had held deep inside. Harold listened in stunned silence, his own heart aching with the realization that the woman he loved was more complex and multifaceted than he had ever imagined. In the soft glow of that hospital room, every whispered detail of her long-hidden youth began to reshape his understanding of the life they had shared. A mosaic where every shard of experience, pleasant or painful, was an integral piece of her soul. As Martha's tale of her unspoken past resumed, the hospital room became a sacred space for a confession that would forever alter the contours of their shared history. Though the road ahead promised more revelations, in that moment, Harold's eyes, brimming with tenderness and sorrow, revealed that his heart, despite the shock of unknown chapters, beat still for her with a love that could embrace all of her truths. Martha's voice grew even softer as she prepared to reveal the most painful chapter of her past, a chapter that she had buried deep within her heart for decades. With Harold's hand still clasped in hers, She began to speak of a time so distant and raw that it seemed almost disjointed from the life they had built together. "When I was very young," she whispered, her eyes glistening with tears born of long-held sorrow, "I discovered I was carrying a child." For a long moment, the hospital room was filled with only the sound of her quiet confession and the low hum of medical machines, a solemn backdrop for the unveiling of a secret that had defined so much of her hidden self. I was not ready for the responsibility of life, nor did I understand the depth of love it entailed. I was impulsive and full of dreams, reckless in my youth, and I made choices without realizing the consequences. She paused, as if gathering the shattered fragments of those days, then continued, "I never told anyone, not even you, because I feared the shame that would come with the truth. I belonged to a world where a single mistake could ruin everything. I was terrified of exposure, of being judged and ostracized by those I loved and the community I belonged to. So, I wrapped that secret close, locking it deep within my heart." Martha's eyes shimmered with a sorrow that spanned a lifetime. "During that time, I also lost the child," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of finality. "I don't remember how it happened exactly. A fragile infant, a fate sealed by the cruel twists of life. Perhaps illness, perhaps fate's indifferent hand. All I know is that the moment I realized my dream, my little life, was fading away, I felt an agony that no words could capture." She breathed deeply, as if the act of remembering made the pain even sharper. I watched helplessly as the hope I had dared to nurture slipped away, leaving behind a void so deep it has haunted me all these years. In that tender confession, the room seemed to shrink even further, cocooning them in a circle of shared grief and vulnerability. Martha explained how, in the cacophony of her youth, a time full of vibrant dreams, restless rebellion, and impulsive decisions, she had been forced into solitude by the very tragedy that had marked her. "The loss of that child," she continued with a quivering voice, "created a wound in my heart that I tried desperately to hide. I couldn't bring myself to speak of it because every time I did, I was reminded of the pain, the guilt, and the shame. I feared that it would tarnish the perfect image of the life I built with you, Harold. I was too afraid that you would see me as flawed, as someone who had done something unforgivable. I was ashamed even of my own self." Harold felt a fresh surge of emotion as he listened, his mind racing with questions and regrets that came too late. Throughout their 60 years together, he had believed he knew every facet of Martha, every secret joy and trial she had endured. Yet the revelation of her lost child was an entirely new landscape, one dotted with memories of heartache that had been hidden so meticulously that even he had remained oblivious. He tightened his grip on her hand, as if offering silent solace and assuring her that her pain was now his to share. Martha's confession was not only one of loss, but also of the delicate fear that had driven her into silence. "I tried to forget, Harold," she continued, her voice breaking with vulnerability. "By burying those memories under the illusion of our perfect life, every moment of our love became tinted by an unspoken sorrow that I carried alone. I wrote many letters, truths that I never dared to send, hoping that one day I would find the courage to face this part of my past. Instead, the silence grew, every year, every moment, until it became an inseparable part of who I am." Her words fell like drops of rain, each one etching a deeper line of pain and regret onto the fabric of their shared history. The significance of this revelation was colossal. Not only had Martha concealed the fact of a lost life, a child that had existed so briefly and then vanished, but she had also concealed her deep-seated anguish and the fear of abandonment that had shadowed her since that moment. The secret was a quiet echo of a past marked by both the wonder of new life and the cruelty of loss, a paradox that had left her forever changed. It was a wound she had guarded fiercely, believing that the truth would erode the carefully constructed image of the pristine love they both cherished. Harold's heart ached as he absorbed her words. The gentle cadence of her tone was interwoven with both grief and a mournful beauty that spoke of the innocence once lost. In that vulnerable moment, every memory they had built together, every happy memory, every quiet evening, every shared smile, became suffused with the bittersweet haze of a secret that loomed large over their lives. It was a truth that, once revealed, seemed poised to redefine not only their past but also the future they still hoped to share, even in the twilight of her days. There was an undeniable poignancy in Martha's admission. She had spent half a century living with this hidden grief, a ghost in the quiet corners of her mind, and now, with trembling resolve, it emerged into the light. Her voice softened as she whispered, "I carried it alone, Harold, for so long, out of shame, fear, and the belief that I must protect what little we had of our perfect love." Tears welled in Harold's eyes as silence enveloped them. A silence heavy with shared sorrow and the dawning realization that healing might begin only with the acceptance of the whole truth. In that moment, amidst the beeping monitors and the soft glow of the hospital room, the past and present merged, leaving an indelible mark on the love they had so long sustained. In the quiet aftermath of Martha's heartrending confession, Harold saw not only the sorrow of lost years in her eyes, but also a fragile stack of yellowed envelopes tucked away in an old wooden box on the bedside table. Over the decades, each anniversary of that tragic loss had been marked by a letter, one that Martha wrote in solitude, pouring out her secret grief, her guilt, and her unspoken dreams of reconciliation. They were unsent, hidden messages woven with ink and tears, embodying the part of her soul she had locked away out of fear and shame. Martha's hands trembled as she recalled the first letter she had ever written on that fateful day many years ago. In the dim light of her modest room, the soft scratch of her fountain pen against paper had been both cathartic and excruciating. With every stroke, she confessed how, in her youth, the thrill of secret passions and the terror of loss had swept her away. That first letter had been addressed to no one in particular, a private soliloquy meant to soothe her aching heart and to hold her secret safe from judgment. She wrote about the brief, fleeting existence of the child, the overwhelming sorrow of its passing, and the way that loss had carved a silent rift in her life, a wound too tender to expose yet too potent to mend. Each carefully chosen word seemed to serve two purposes: to immortalize the ghost of a miracle that never fully bloomed and to shield her from the harsh scrutiny of a society that might not forgive her youthful transgression. Year after year, on the anniversary of that loss or on nights when loneliness enveloped her like a familiar shroud, Martha had taken up her pen and written again. In one letter, the ink detailed the long, sleepless nights spent wondering if she had made the right choice in burying that secret deep within her. In another, she described how her heart would pound at the mere thought of it, a relentless reminder of a chapter where love, loss, and regret intermixed in a sorrowful dance. There were letters filled with raw, unbridled emotion that sprawled across pages, confessing to a self-imposed isolation. A woman determined to shield her family from the pain that she feared would tarnish their idyllic years together. One letter, written on the eve of a stormy winter night, was laden with the imagery of frozen time. Martha had written, "I sealed away my secret like a letter never to be read, preserving the memory of what briefly was and forever might have been. I wonder if forgiveness lies hidden in the silence of unsaid words, if someday the truth may be a balm rather than a burden." The words had been a desperate plea for absolution, a silent hope that with time, the weight of regret might be lessened, and that the truth, however painful, might bridge the growing distance between what she had been forced to hide and the life she now shared with Harold. For years, these unsent letters had been her constant companions, a collection of private confessions that she guarded as if they were sacred relics of an earlier self, raw, unrefined, and fragile. They lay snugly within that battered wooden box, their envelopes faded but still legible, each marked with a date and occasionally a gentle doodle in the margins, a heart or a teardrop that testified to the depth of her emotion. They were her silent testament to the myriad complexities of a life lived in the shadow of secret heartbreak, of joy intermingled with sorrow. Now, as she sat weakened by the inevitable approach of her final moments, these letters carried an even deeper significance. They were no longer just relics of pain. They had become a record of her inner life, a detailed chronicle of all the years during which she had safeguarded her secret with such determination that it had defined her even as she built a life with Harold. A life that had always been perceived as perfect by everyone, including Harold himself. He remembered how, in the glow of their younger days, Martha's laughter filled their home, her soul seemingly untarnished by regret. Yet now, as each unsent letter lay open on the table, it was clear that the truth she had long concealed was as much a part of her as the love she had always given so freely. Harold gently picked up one of the letters, his weathered fingers tracing the looping, delicate handwriting. The ink, though faded, still throbbed with the passion and sorrow of a time he had never known. Each letter whispered of a stolen chance at love that had never materialized, of longing for a child that had flickered in existence and then vanished into oblivion. The vulnerable words recounted years of silent mourning and the arduous daily battle of keeping an overwhelming wisp of personal tragedy at bay, a balance she had managed to maintain to preserve the illusion of their perfect union. With the air heavy with the unspoken confessions of decades amassed in pages, Harold's heart ached anew. As he slowly absorbed the contents, each sentence resonated with the realization that every secret letter had not been an act of betrayal, but a desperate, tender effort by Martha to reconcile her past with the serene life they had built together. Her letters were as much a part of their shared history as the laughter, the tears, and the quiet moments of enduring companionship. They were, in truth, a chronicle of the hidden cost that had accompanied a love so profound, even as it flourished against the odds. Standing beside her bed, Harold wondered how many years he had spent believing he knew her completely, while one vast, beautiful secret had quietly defined her inner world. The letters, unsent though they might remain, had finally begun to bridge the chasm of misunderstanding between them. And with each page he read, his heart softened with a renewed understanding, and a fierce, unconditional love surged within him. A love that was ready to embrace every facet of her truth, no matter how painful or unexpected. After closing his eyes to absorb every word of Martha's painful confession, and after the gentle, poignant account of the unsent letters filled with sorrow and secret hopes, Harold sat motionless for a long while by the large window overlooking the quiet Virginia town. In the sterile hush of the hospital room, he remained silent, his thoughts drifting like autumn leaves in a slow, unhurried breeze. His eyes, tinged with grief and wonder, traced the patterns formed by the soft morning light on the windowpane. Outside, the world carried on in its gentle rhythm. A few cars passed slowly along the nearby road, and the distant trees swayed with a tender, rhythmic cadence that seemed to echo the transient beauty of life itself. In that reflective moment, Harold's mind swirled with decades of shared memories. He remembered the early days of their love, the simple yet profound moments of laughter and tears that had woven the rich tapestry of their 60-year union. He recalled how Martha's eyes sparkled with mischief and passion during their youth, and how, through every hardship and every tender joy, they had built a life together that had once seemed indestructible. Yet, now, as he silently reread the faded words of her unsent letters, each envelope a testament to secret sorrows and hopes unspoken, he felt a mingling of profound loss and unexpected understanding. The revelations were not an attack on their shared past or on the sacred bond they had nurtured. Instead, they were like long-hidden brushstrokes on a canvas, revealing that the portrait of their life was even more complex, layered, and deeply human than he had ever dared imagine. His gaze, fixed on the vague shapes illuminated by the diffused sunlight, betrayed a torrent of emotions. Harold's heart felt heavy with the knowledge that Martha had carried this hidden burden all these years, a secret that had haunted the corridors of her soul even as she smiled, loved, and lived beside him. In the gentle silence, memories of quiet evenings spent in each other's arms surged forward, the silent understanding in a shared glance, the unspoken comfort found in brushstrokes of everyday moments. Now, the weight of what she had kept concealed for so long added both sorrow and a certain bittersweet beauty to those recollections. It was as if every unsent letter, every whispered regret, and every forbidden memory had been part of the mosaic that shaped the woman he loved. A woman whose spirit, though marred by hidden grief, remained luminous with an irreplaceable warmth. In that contemplative stillness, Harold's mind wandered to the many times they had silently supported each other through storms, when unspoken pain had been soothed by a reassuring touch or a shared smile. He wondered if perhaps life's most painful truths were also its most profound treasures, imbuing the soul with depth and an unexpected capacity for compassion. The unsent letters, with their candid admissions of failure, loss, and the raw intensity of youth's missteps, were not symbols of betrayal but of vulnerability. They had, in their own way, made Martha more real, more human, a living, breathing embodiment of imperfection and resilience. And in that realization, Harold felt something stir within him, a deep, abiding understanding that every secret, no matter how painful, was part of the vast tapestry of a life well lived. Slowly, as if emerging from a long and somber reverie, Harold turned his attention from the world outside to the fragile figure lying beside him. Martha, her eyes now fluttering closed in a moment of quiet weariness, lay vulnerable yet dignified in the soft hospital light. With deliberate tenderness, Harold reached out and took her hand in his once more. The touch was light but resolute, a silent pledge that transcended words. In the gentle clasp of his hand, he conveyed an unspoken message, that every piece of her history, every secret letter, every lost hope, every untold story, was known, accepted, and cherished. It was a profound affirmation of his love, one that embraced not only the woman of the present but also all the hidden chapters that had shaped her. In that still moment by the window, as the muted light of dawn mingled with the quiet hum of the hospital, Harold's silence spoke volumes. He did not need to utter a single word to let Martha know that he had listened, that he had absorbed every sorrow and every joy encapsulated in her lifelong secret. The soft, steady pressure of his fingers around hers was enough to bridge any gap left by years of concealed truths and unspoken pain. In that act, Harold expressed a truth more powerful than any confession. His heart had never wavered. Even now, confronted with revelations that could have unmade their love, he found himself loving her more completely. His acceptance was not born out of ignorance or indifference. It was the quiet culmination of a lifetime of understanding that real love is meant to hold all parts of a person, even those they have hidden away. For a long, sacred moment, the world outside seemed to fade into insignificance as Harold sat there, lost in thought and overcome by emotion. The grand silence of that hospital room was filled with the gentle, steady pulse of two hearts connected by decades of shared life. In that space, every tear, every memory, and every secret was honored. And though the weight of Martha's revelations threatened to shatter the familiar comfort of their past, Harold's unwavering gaze and tender touch promised that the essence of their love, pure, enduring, forgiving, would always remain, no matter how deep the truths they carried. After the long, bittersweet silence that had followed Martha's confession, Harold finally drew a deep, steady breath. The hospital room, its pale blue walls and the gentle, rhythmic hum of the machines, seemed to pause in anticipation. Harold's weathered face, etched with 60 years of shared joy and sorrow, now bore the marks of a man who had carried his own quiet burdens. His eyes, glistening with tears unspoken, slowly lifted to meet Martha's. And in that fragile moment he spoke with a calm intensity that belied the storm of emotions swirling within him. "Martha," he murmured, his voice soft yet resonant. "I have always known that there were parts of you I could not fully explain through words or memories. Your eyes, those brilliant, trembling eyes of yours, spoke of mysteries and pain that I sensed even when you wore your gentle smile." He paused, letting the silence deepen their intimacy. "I knew, my love. I knew about the shadows in your past, the secret of your lost child, the sorrow that you hid behind unsent letters and silent tears. And I loved you despite it all." For a long moment, Harold allowed those words to hang in the air like a benediction. He reached out slowly, carefully cupping her hand with his own. Though his voice wavered, it carried a quiet strength and resolute tenderness. "You see, Martha, every fragment of your life, every passion, every regret, every joy that you have kept hidden, has made you the remarkable woman I have cherished all these years. The secret you carried was not a betrayal of our love, but a testimony to your humanity, to the depths of feeling that have always defined you." Then, with deliberate calm, Harold reached over to the small wooden nightstand that had, over time, become a silent witness to their shared life. From within its modest confines, he slowly retrieved a faded, worn envelope. The envelope's edges were soft from decades of handling, and something delicate about its appearance made it seem both fragile and precious. Harold held it out toward Martha, his eyes never leaving hers. "There is something I've held on to as well," he said quietly. "For years, I kept a token from our early days together. I didn't speak of it because I believed our love would flourish better without the weight of past hardships overshadowing our present. But now, with you revealing your truth, I feel it is time that you know mine." Martha's weak, quivering eyes searched his face, a mixture of apprehension and hope shimmering within. With trembling fingers, Harold withdrew a photograph from the envelope, a black and white image of a young couple, radiant with the exuberance and promise of youth. In the portrait, Martha's arch and vibrant eyes shone with unbridled passion and innocence, a time when both of them had been desperately, beautifully alive, untainted by the hardships that later marked their journey. At the corner of the photograph, Harold had scribbled a small, looped note. "I knew even then that life would twist and turn, but my love for you would endure beyond every trial." Harold's voice, now thick with emotion, continued, "I also carried a secret of my own, a memory of pain and hope that I never found the heart to share. I battled demons and sorrow in my early years, and your very presence was the light that kept me steadfast in the darkness. I didn't mention it because I wanted our love to be as pure and unburdened as it could be, but I never doubted your strength, nor did I ever fear the truth. For I always knew that even in our imperfections, our love was complete." A profound silence settled between them once more, filled with the gravity of decades of unspoken understanding. Martha's eyes welled with tears as she tenderly reached out to touch the photograph, the weight of her hidden past mingling with the glow of newfound acceptance. Harold's steady gaze bore into hers, communicating a promise, an unyielding vow of unconditional love. "I have loved you in every moment and every secret silence, Martha. Every joy and every sorrow, every hidden tear and unspoken hope, has only deepened my love for you. Those secrets, no matter how painful they may seem now, are threads in the beautiful tapestry of our life together. You are every part of me, and I have cherished you wholly." His words fell like a healing balm on the wounds of half a century. In that moment, any fear that the truth might shatter their perfect image was dissolved by the sincerity of his embrace. Harold softly pressed his forehead against hers, a gentle, unspoken communion of souls. The photograph, the envelope, and all the long-harbored secrets became not weapons of regret, but symbols of a love resilient enough to encompass every truth. "Sometimes, my darling," Harold whispered through his tears, "the greatest strength is found in forgiving the past and embracing every hidden part of ourselves. I have always known you, even before you spoke these words, and I have always loved you for the complete, unvarnished truth of who you are." His response was both a soothing caress and a revelation, a confirmation that their bond was forged beyond the superficial perfection others saw, a testament to the raw realities of life that only true love could encompass. In the gentle glow of that hospital room, as the morning light mingled with the soft beeps of the monitors, Harold's calm, compassionate response transformed the sorrow of revelation into an embrace of shared vulnerability. It was a moment where the past, with all its hidden scars and unsent letters, was accepted without judgment, and where their union was sanctified by the complete truth of their lives. And though the future remained uncertain, in that precious instant, they found solace in each other. A quiet, enduring promise that love, in its truest form, overcomes even the heaviest of secrets. In the final, fragile minutes of Martha's life, the hospital room was filled with a quiet, sacred stillness. The gentle beeping of the monitors had slowed to a rhythmic whisper, as if the machines themselves mourned the approaching farewell. Harold sat beside her, his hands still tenderly wrapped around hers, each heartbeat echoing the decades of love and shared sorrow between them. The soft light of dawn filtered through the window, casting long, gentle shadows on the walls, ghosts of a past filled with both beauty and unspoken anguish. Martha's eyes, once so rich with memories of wild youth and quiet resilience, now shimmered with the weight of years unburdened only by the promise of a final confession. Her breathing, labored yet dignified, marked each moment as precious. With a faint, wistful smile, she squeezed Harold's hand one last time. In a voice so fragile that it seemed almost carried on the wind, she whispered, "Harold, I'm so sorry that I kept this secret from you. All my life, I've carried a piece of my past in solitude. I hoped it would never darken the light of what we had." Her words, soft and tremulous, hung in the air. Harold's eyes glistened with tears that reflected both the years of their unbreakable bond and the shock of revelations that had unfolded over the past moments. He had already accepted the revelations of Martha's hidden youth, the heartbreaking loss of her child, and the endless, unsent letters that bore testament to her secret grief. And now, facing the imminent end, he sensed that there was still more, something yet unsaid, yet destined to transform all he thought he knew about their life together. As the minutes slipped away like grains of sand through desperate fingers, Martha's eyes gradually closed. In that final, transcendent instant, Harold leaned forward and kissed her forehead, a silent promise that her truth, however painful, would not be a burden on his love. Their embrace, though wordless, spoke volumes of a tenderness that had weathered every storm and every secret. With her passing, the room seemed to exhale a long-held breath, leaving behind an echo of sorrow and a luminous hope. After the quiet farewell, the hush was momentarily broken by the soft footsteps of a nurse. With respectful sorrow, she adjusted the blankets and closed the door. Harold remained seated by her side long after her body was gently transported away, feeling both the shock of loss and the duty to preserve every memory they had shared. Amid the lingering silence of the now empty room, his eyes caught a glimpse of a small, familiar wooden box that Martha had kept at his bedside throughout her long illness. Its well-worn surface, etched with the delicate marks of time, had silently borne witness to decades of small joys and hidden sorrows. Curiosity and an aching need for further connection stirred within him as Harold slowly rose and approached the box. With careful hands that trembled from a combination of grief and reverence, he opened it. Nestled amid a few cherished mementos, a faded scarf, a brittle photograph from their early days, and other simple tokens of their life together, lay an envelope with elegant, looping handwriting on its front. The inscription read, "If I don't make it, open after." Harold's heart constricted. He remembered Martha's quiet insistence that if the end ever came, this envelope would be his last chance to understand the full depths of her hidden heart. With a deep, steadying breath, he sat back down at the bedside and, with careful deliberation, broke the seal on the envelope. In the soft rustle of paper, he found Martha's final letter. A letter written with the same humility, sorrow, and luminous love that had defined her entire life. In that final letter, Martha's handwriting danced across the page, tender and unadorned. She began, "My dearest Harold, if you are reading these words, then the inevitable has come to pass, and I have left this world. I write to you now not as a woman burdened by regret, but as one who has finally unburdened her soul. Over these 60 years, I have carried many secrets, painful truths that I believed would fracture the image of the perfect love we nurtured. Yet, my heart has always whispered the indescribable truth that love is not about perfection, but about the beauty of our shared growth and the acceptance of every scar that life inscribes on us. I have told you of my youthful days, of the passion and rebellion that defined a part of me you never knew. I confessed the sorrow of the child I lost, a child whose brief life still lingers in the quiet corners of my memory. But there is one more truth, a secret deeper than any I have revealed. In the darkness of a night too long ago, when dreams were as fragile as promises and I felt the unbearable weight of loneliness, I made a choice. I chose to let go of a part of myself that I believed would haunt me forever. Yet, in that difficult moment, I discovered that even in loss, there can be immeasurable hope. I entrusted my love, my secret hope, to a family who promised to nurture the spark of life that was not lost, but reborn in a quiet way. Yes, my dearest, the child I once believed I had lost completely, my lost dream, lives on, cherished and cared for by those who embraced it with all the love that I could no longer give in my own broken way. I never had the courage to tell you, for I feared that this truth might overshadow our love, or cast questions upon the perfection our life seemed to embody. But in my final hours, I could not keep my heart's true story hidden any longer. I wanted you to know that I always believed in miracles, even in the midst of sorrow. I believed that our love was so profound that it could transcend secrets and transform them into light. Harold, my love for you has always been unconditional. I chose you every day, in every heartbeat and every silent prayer. I am sorry for the secrets I kept, for the silent nights filled with letters never sent. Yet, I hope that in knowing this final truth, the truth of resilience, hope, and the endless capacity to love, you will understand that our love was never a lie but a living, breathing miracle enriched by every part of our past, no matter how painful. Please forgive me for not sharing this sooner. I leave you with all my heart, with the hope that you will carry on our love with bravery and compassion. Remember, true love is not diminished by secrets. It is deepened by the truth. Always and forever, Martha. Harold's eyes scanned the letter repeatedly, each word weaving itself into the tapestry of his memory. The revelation that his beloved Martha had, during those years of guarded solitude, chosen not to let her lost child slip into oblivion but to entrust it to a caring family, struck him with a profound mixture of sorrow and wonder. This secret, this second, deeper truth, challenged every notion of their past and even redefined the contours of their love. It was as though Martha had revealed that her heart had always contained multitudes, a love for him that was pure and unwavering, and a maternal, iridescent hope that life could endure even through loss. Tears streamed silently down Harold's cheeks as he clutched the letter close to his chest. The world around him seemed to pause. In that final, solitary moment, he understood that all the decades they had shared, a love celebrated by everyone as perfect, was enriched by imperfections, by secrets that, once unveiled, only deepened the truth of their connection. He felt the weight of her hidden sorrow, yet also the luminous grace of her forgiveness and her unconditional love. With shaking hands, Harold folded the letter back into the envelope, as if safeguarding her sacred words for the rest of his days. He knew that this truth, so painful and yet so beautiful, would forever shape his memory of Martha. And as he gazed out the window at the slowly brightening Virginia morning, he whispered softly, "I loved you even before I knew all of you, and I will love you all the more now." In that final, bittersweet moment, Harold experienced both an indescribable loss and an overwhelming gratitude. The secret Martha had borne, the truth that she had chosen to share in her last breath, had transformed their perfect love into something even more real, a love that embraced not just the joys, but the scars, the hidden grief, and the miracles born from the pain. As he sat there, holding her memory close, Harold vowed to honor her truth, to let it guide him in every step, knowing that their love would remain eternal, a testament to the beauty of forgiveness and the enduring power of truth. Sometimes true forgiveness comes even before confession. Subscribe to not miss more stories where love triumphs even over the heaviest truths.